This is a podcast from the Queen City Podcast Network.
Welcome to Nerd School.
Nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
Yeah.
Suck it, nerds!
Nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
Suck it, nerds!
Nerds! Nerds! Nerds!
Suck it, nerds!
Visit me, daddy ass.
Welcome to Nerd School.
My name is Low-Key. Welcome to the Nerd School podcast, you jerk.
She's like a Sith, but she doesn't want to be in the lifestyle anymore kind of thing.
Oh.
And she ends up having a lightsaber that has like the red lightsaber on one end and then like a yellow lightsaber on the other end. But it's like a double-bladed
This is in the comics or a book?
It's not. It's in Star Trek, Star Wars Visions. It's like the new season. Like the first episode is called Sith, and it's all about.
That's the anime one.
It's not anime, but it's animated one, and it's not. It's not even anime. It's almost like music video, like early '90s. Kind of style.
Okay.
Because it's like she's basically an artist.
Okay.
But then like her energy and her force manifests itself in like splotches of color. But then like there's her Sith master is hunting her down because he's trying to get her to really embrace the Sith, but she no longer wants to do any. She just wants to live life and enjoy life. But then she ends up, and it's weird because she ends up fighting him, and then all of a sudden, when her blade comes out, the ones like she realized she can combine being a Sith and just doing whatever she wants to do, kind of thing. So that like the blade kind of represents that, but she ends up killing the Sith Lord, which basically does what he was trying to get her to do. Because in order to become a Sith Lord, your apprentice has to kill you. That's why they say there can only be two. And that's why, like, how I've been sitting there at TVJ.
Yeah.
Like, you got the perfect opportunity to be a Sith Lord. Like, you want to take me down. You take me out, you ascend to being the Sith Lord.
Then she becomes the Lord. That's right.
Right.
Instead of the apprentice. There can only be two.
Right.
Oh, my God. Well, that's a great way to start. So hopefully there'll be a Star Wars museum coming soon because we just last week got to preview the Marvel superhero. What's it called? The Marvel. I should get this right.
Universal superheroes.
Universal
superheroes.
Yeah, Marvel's Universal Superheroes exhibit at Discovery Place Science in Charlotte, North Carolina. That it is open for the next 2 months at least, possibly 3. I think they're hoping to extend until September, but we got to preview it as part of Nerd School. And we promised them we'd put out an episode. We put out some videos. I'm still editing together a little bit of a fun little video based on what we did there. So I got to interview the co-curator, Patrick A. Reed. And here is a little bit of what he told us about the exhibit.
Patrick A. Reed. I'm the associate curator of Marvel Universe of Superheroes, which is now on display here at Discovery Place in beautiful Charlotte through September. Unless we're really lucky and they demand that we extend it. I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that one.
Yes.
Because I'd like more reasons to be spending time here in Charlotte.
Yeah, so exciting. Tell me again about your history at San Diego Comic-Con, what you used to do with the hip-hop.
Okay, so I am a longtime pop culture journalist and historian. I do a lot of programming at conventions and at film festivals. For the past almost 11 years now, I've been doing the hip hop and comics cultures combining programs at San Diego Comic-Con, at New York Comic-Con, at various colleges and schools and other venues around the country. We did one at the Louis Vuitton store in New York in December, which was astonishing. Like, it's the Louis Vuitton store, and we have Eric Orr, the first hip-hop comic artist. We have Pharoah Monch. We have Large Professor. We have Elda Sensei. We have Danny Lore, who's a Marvel writer. It was it was such an astounding thing and such a weird setting to be in.
Yeah.
It was definitely a moment of whoever thought that hip hop would take it this far.
Yeah, really. I mean, how did you get the idea to combine hip hop and comics?
It wasn't an idea that I had. It was just a thing that, I mean, it made sense to me. I'd always been in the middle of comics and hip hop.
Okay.
I grew up as a comic fan, reading comics. And the music that I listened to, the visuals that I saw, like, comics are a foundational element of hip hop culture because hip hop culture was built out of available elements. And therefore, what we now think of as comic culture, what you see at a comic convention, is all reflected in hip hop culture. The Saturday morning cartoons, the kung fu and action films, the visual sensibility of comics that was translated into graffiti art. All of these things were foundational elements, and you can hear it certainly now finally digitally streaming in things like De La Soul's records. You can hear the sample sources. You can hear that these were the points of reference that created a language for a generation. And they were Easter eggs that, gave people an extra point of connection to the material. You hear that sample and you go, oh, I remember that record, or I remember that TV show. And so it wasn't so much an idea I had as just like, why isn't anybody discussing this? So I pitched a panel to New York Comic Con in 2012. They said, yeah, okay. And then the next thing I know, I, as a journalist and somebody who hates being on stage, is stepping on stage with Pete Rock and Jean Grey and DMC and Large Pro, and like it's
DMC made his own comic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it was really it wasn't an idea I had so much as a why isn't anyone else doing this? And the moment I did it, I discovered it resonated, and it resonated with the people that that I wanted to talk to.
I love it. Can you share more about this exhibit specifically?
Yes, thank you for keeping me on track.
That's my job in this room.
Yeah, no,
I'm off in
so
right now.
Right. Well, that's I mean that's a whole other conversation. But boy, could I go on about that. And I do for hours at times. In fact, I'm just going to quickly. When we first hit lockdown, I ended up doing 2 virtual panels for San Diego Comic-Con. And if you get a chance, check those out because they're on YouTube on Comic-Con's account. And they're not straight panels; they're visual mixtapes where I interviewed like 20 different people and then cross-cut and edited. So they're sort of like visual mixtape mini documentaries talking about this at far greater length and in far greater detail than I could right now. So,
I have the biggest nerd boner right now.
So, the Marvel Universe of Superheroes launched in 2018 at the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle. It is an exhibition that has since played at a dozen odd venues throughout the U.S. and Canada. Each time we reopen, we have taken the opportunity to expand and revise it because when we launched, we started developing this in 2016, 2017, there were a half dozen Marvel films out. And now Marvel Studios has dozens of films and Disney Plus TV series. There have been the Spider-Verse films that have come out from Sony. There's a whole new live-action Spider-Man series from Sony. There's, Marvel puts out dozens upon dozens of comics every month. The Marvel Universe is not a staid thing. It is a constantly growing, changing, evolving entity that crosses all kinds of media. So we wanted to create a show that certainly covers Marvel's cultural history as a publishing entity, as a film studio, but also talks about the creative universe and where it's been and where it is now and where it's going next.
Fantastic.
And so each time we reopen, we add new pieces, we add new elements. We take the opportunity to make sure that this is a growing, living, evolving project, and that people who come see the show will see their current favorite characters as well as learn a little bit about the history of the creators who brought all these things to life, about the fictional history of the Marvel Universe and the cultural history of Marvel as a company.
Awesome. Yeah, I would say we started talking because I was over here by this WandaVision exhibit, and you were just kind of talking about how it's so current that we're constantly evolving. Obviously, this started in 2018,
and quite literally, as you're watching this projection mapped space change and evolve, this is a perfect visual representation. Like
what you're talking about.
We took the storytelling that they used in the WandaVision show and literally brought it to life within this space, while also displaying the physical props and artifacts from the show, the comic art that in certain ways inspired the events that people now know from the television show.
Yes.
And it's this right here is sort of the perfect physical embodiment of everything we try to do.
But I love seeing it through each exhibit. So when I was spending time over in Spider-Man, I noted that it wasn't just traditional Spider-Man, it was all the Spider-Mans, plus Miles Morales, plus going into the Spider-Verse. And so you guys do a fantastic job of mixing clothing elements and comic strips and history. And all the elements come together. So
and
when
if you
you're
keep
coming
going through,
in,
you'll find the video games,
Yes.
you'll find the animation. All of these things are in here because these characters resonate through all these different media with all these different audiences.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we build in those points of connection. So no matter what your point of reference is for Marvel, you'll find yourself reflected in this show, and it'll give you a point of entry to then explore the entire thing.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time to talk to us.
Thank you. I appreciate
that. That was great.
So, Art, based on what you saw, what did you feel about the exhibit? What did you think?
I loved it. It was one of those super like geeky things because like one it was an exhibit about comic books, but it was almost like like going through a retrospective of like some big name artists, right?
Yeah.
So like then just being able to like interact with a lot of the things, like it's one of those like you don't know what you're getting going in, but then once you go into it, just because we have touch technology, it's like you're able to sit there and go through certain things, swipe through certain things. They had little things that was like where you could hold it up to your ear, like we got to hear like the Lonely Man intro to Incredible Hulk, the Spider-Man intro from the animated cartoon series. So that was awesome. And then like seeing the actual costumes from the actual movies was awesome. It's like so you get that like you see somebody on television and you've never seen him in person kind of thing.
Right.
When you get to sit there and be like right next to their actual outfit that they wore, you get to really see just how big their presence is on screen, but then also how big their presence, like you mentioned, like how short Tom Holland is. Like he looks like a little, like even if you watch any of the his solo movies, just having him next to Mary Jane, like Zendaya is kind of tall. So it's almost like the way the camera angle is, it kind of makes them look like they're the same height, but you can see that like, okay, especially just seeing like actual photos of them out in the wild, you're like, okay, he's kind of a short dude. But I mean, we're not tall dudes either, but it was just like one of those things, like you see this little small, and I guess Peter Parker, Spider-Man has always been
a tiny baby, a little
like,
tiny, itty bitty.
Not a little tiny baby, but like
Tom Holland is tiny. Like we stood next to his actual movie worn costume, and we were taller than it, and it was up on a 2 foot pedestal. And we were still taller than him, kind of. So
then also like the whole,
and their feet are so little.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that thing that we saw, like like, is it like could have been close to life size scale that the thing would actually be? Because I think the thing has been been like a big rock granite type monster. I mean, not monster, hero. I guess you could still call him a monster.
He's a hero. But when you walk in, so just what Art said, kind of right at the beginning, they have this cool, like almost like a cartoon set. It's the thing sitting in a couch on a couch, and you can sit next to him and get your picture with them. But the window behind you was animated, and like you don't even realize it till after you took a picture that every couple seconds a superhero shows up animated in the window behind you, like you're in the cartoon. Just things like that's like one little example of just the things that once you start scratching the surface, you realize, oh, this isn't just like a wall plaque, like it's a video screen that you can has more information the more you swipe and then it's like all of a sudden I got a panic once I realized, oh my god, this section that I thought I would only need to be here for a minute. I need to be here for 15 minutes to get all the information. And it's like, how big is this whole thing? We only have till noon. Like we got this preview for 2 hours and we were like, oh no, I got this panic feeling. It's like, I want to see all of this, but I don't have the time to take it all in. I wish I could have spent more time with everything, but we just wanted to see an overview.
There's so much to read too. Like you could just sit there and you can look at stuff, but then like there's original art There's original animation cells. There's
Yes.
storyboards. You have
And they
like
take you all the way back to the history of Marvel, like the very
right,
beginnings, of that. And I'm a buff of the origins of everything. I need to know the step 1, step 2, step 3. And
Step
it's like
three.
I got kind of like, oh, I'm too far into, like, now I'm in the MCU, but I haven't gone, like, I haven't got to the 40s yet. What's going, so it's a little bit overwhelming, but it's so cool. And that little Ant-Man, did you see that little Ant-Man animation thing?
Yeah, that was awesome. I think I took a picture.
Really
I tried to
cool.
get a picture of it, but like you can see him like he's just running through, and then the thing will pop up with some factoid, run through again. I like this fucking awesome.
How to describe that, I'm not sure, but it's like it says, wait a minute here, like give this a second to play. So it looks like an exhibit of like the size of what Ant-Man would be, and it's like there's a pen and a coffee mug and a notebook or whatever, and a pair of glasses or whatever, a stapler, like on a desk, and then but it's in an enclosed glass case, and then all of a sudden Ant-Man pops up animated inside the exhibit of real things and runs across and does these things, so you can actually see the size proportion. And then it's a whole animated thing that takes you, I don't know, 15 minutes to watch the whole thing, and he keeps doing different things. That's different facts about Ant-Man. That's just one little part of it. And then,
Right.
Captain America's shield is next to you. And then the actual outfit Captain America wore. And then Scarlett Johansson Black Widow costume is right there. And it's like you could just spend the whole time just looking at one thing, and it would be worth it. So definitely check it out if you're in Charlotte. Check out this Marvel's superhero exhibit. Marvel Universe of Superheroes.
Yeah, Marvel Universe of Superheroes.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. But I mean, we just got to the surface of it. Marvel Universe of Superheroes, a Discovery Place Science, Uptown Charlotte. Tons of fun. We had to pry Andy out of there. Like, Andy was not ready to go.
Right.
That gave me flashbacks of growing up with Andy. Whenever every single time we would be at a store somewhere, and if our dad or mom said we could pick out a toy, like everybody can pick out one Hot Wheel, you can pick out one action figure, whatever it is. It was usually like a limit of, $5 or whatever, and everybody can get one. And once we got that green light, we can get one. We get to get one. Oh my God. Like, we all, made our choice and already kind of had an idea what we wanted. Andy would like reset his brain. He has to look at every single one for 15 minutes and weigh it in his mind, and we don't just pick one.
Because you gotta, it's like you had to make a calculated choice. Yeah. You can't just grab one off because you don't want to have that regret or FOMO. You get home like, damn it, I should have got that 1984 black Camaro.
Yeah, and he would be up there for hours, like, "Come on, Andy, fuck." And then until the parent would say, "Okay, you can't have any of them if you don't pick now." Then he'll have to pick. It's like,
and then you still have that little bit of subconscious regret because you're like, damn it, I didn't really want this, but I didn't want to miss out on the toy.
Yeah, what if I would have got that van? I should have got the van. I should have got the other thing. But I don't think I was like just so annoyed at how long it took him that I'd be like, I don't even want my toy anymore. It's taking so fucking long. Come on, Andy. Goddamn. And Andy was always with everything like that. Like, it was just. But you don't live with them anymore. You forget about it until we're at the Marvel Universe of Superheroes, and it's like it's 12:30. He was supposed to be out there at noon. They're gonna kick him out.
Yeah.
He's gonna get in trouble.
That was a couple of times I was like, I don't even see Andy. Like, where is Andy?
He needs to read every word.
Then I had to hunt him down because I was like, I seen this gambit. And I was like, oh man, I gotta show this to Andy, and I gotta capture it. Because I want him. I want to see his expression.
Well, and that's what we found you over by the Gambit action figures, and they had this thing I think it was kind of towards the end of the exhibit where you could vote on your favorite hero, and everybody who comes through can vote, and you can vote multiple times, and it keeps a log on a little TV screen who everybody's favorite hero is. And Black Panther was like number 3 when we got there, but we made sure to make him number 1. Over, I think who was number 1 at the time? Was Captain America or something?
I don't know. I know Rocket was like up there really high.
Rocket was up there, yeah, Rocket Raccoon. So it'd be interesting to go back and see who's
see
number
what
one
it-
now.
yeah.
Now that it's been open for a little while, and we are planning on going back because they do. I know they're planning on having a Science on the Rocks, which is a really cool thing Discovery Place does, where they get they open it for the evening for adults and serve alcoholic beverages, and you can go through the exhibits while you're drinking, which I don't know, man. I'm sure they won't let you take your drinks in the Marvel exhibit. They'll probably have you can drink around it, but because I can see that as a recipe for disaster. Somebody spilling their drink. I'll definitely spill my drink in there, and then we'll never be invited back. But anyway, it was a really cool thing, and definitely check it out. I'm trying to think. I don't want to give away everything, so we should probably just leave it at that and just tell everyone go see it. Discovery Place Science, downtown Charlotte. It's really cool. And so that's enough of that. So what I want to finish this with, I also want to delve into Art and I and Andy and TPJ. We've all been talking about that we've lately been sort of getting labeled an MCU podcast because that's kind of what we're focused on. We're taking so long to get through the MCU, but we don't want to just be a movie podcast. We want to be on all things nerddom, and so get into some other things comic book wise, and delving into this history of the Marvel kind of made me feel like I want to try a thing, and I fell down a rabbit hole online, kind of researching something to do this, and I found 2 Wikipedia pages. It's like the history of superhero debuts in comics, and then I fell into like a DC. I feel like we haven't given DC pretty much any love at all. So since DC actually started, or Marvel.
Well, here's the thing. One of the reasons we haven't done that is because we started out reviewing movies, right?
Right.
And we started with like the MCU, and we've done like, Andy had us. What was it, Andy, or was it me? It was Andy had us watch the Snyder Cut. We've referenced. We always because it's comic related and nerd related. We always reference DC, but like most of DC stuff, like I think I'm the only one who actually watches any DC TV series.
Yeah.
And even then towards the end, Andy kind of ruined it for me, where it's like anything I do watch on DC, because for the most part, most of the shows are on CW, it gives me that Gilmore Girls feeling. But then because I'm a nerd, it's like I have to watch, and then like I get in like for instance, like Wednesday is the series finale of The Flash, which is the last surviving show in the Arrowverse. You know who Arrow is, right? Green Arrow.
So the Arrow, did you say Arrowverse?
Arrowverse.
So right. I have a lot of questions because I watched the trailer to the new Flash movie that's coming out with Michael Keaton as Batman. So maybe you can help me here. So, well, I know you can help me here. So this is different. The Arrowverse is different than the DCEU, right?
Well, you gotta call it by its new name now, the DCU.
Oh, it's just the DCU.
Yeah, James Gunn came over and said, "Well, we need the E. We're going to copy MCU."
What was the E standing for?
Disney. DC. Disney Damn it! Why do I want to call it Disney? DC Comics Extended Universe. I think is it extended or expanded or whatever.
DCU is the DC Comics universe, but it's not cinematic. Shouldn't it be the DCCU?
Well, it is cinematic, but they don't. But they, I mean, if you want to
call cinematic universe separate than the TV
not comics,
and the comics,
it would be. It's cinematic. So it's the Disney. Fuck. DC Comics.
It's not Disney. Universe. It's not Disney. So don't get it confused because Disney owns Marvel. They don't own DC yet. But we've kind of alluded to the fact that there's rumblings and rumors that they might buy Warner Brothers, which owns DC.
Right.
And if that happens, that'll be a catastrophe for the comic nerd world, or will it be a benefit?
No, I mean it could be like
it'd be like Coke buying Pepsi.
Find that. Well, yeah, but then it also could be like the MMA, like the what's an Endeavor merger. So you have like the MMA and WWE,
Yeah.
basically owned by the same company.
Yeah.
Like, but they're two different kind of brands. So it could be they own both, but they still just
when
their own separate thing.
WCW got bought by WWE, and now we have all
And
of
then
the
there's
videos,
ECW, yeah,
all the videos in one
or
place.
like how for Brant, AEW, Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor. So you have, these two different companies.
Brant P. Fundak is a friend of the show. He's a guy that we talk to quite a bit that loves wrestling and
AEW. You gotta specify.
Yeah,
he doesn't fuck with Vince McMahon and his shithole.
Yeah. Anyway, but he's a very particular. We got to have him as a guest sometime because he's a very particular type of nerd.
Right. But
possibly the nerdiest human I've ever heard.
Right.
Speak.
And that's not to say
that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a bad thing. Yeah. Okay, so reeling it back because we are, we are the two like tangent headed motherfuckers. Right. Never gonna say so what I want to try is wanting to give DC a little bit of love and caring about the beginnings of everything.
Yeah, let me finish. Let me explain it to you for you.
Okay.
Let me explain this for you. So the Arrowverse.
Oh, the Arrowverse. Yeah, we never got to that.
Yeah.
Back to
so
that.
the Arrowverse started with the Arrow show. So
and Arrow is just like he's DC's stupid Hawkeye
he's
guy.
Oliver Queen. He's a little bit different than
he's Green Arrow.
Hawkeye. He's Green Arrow, but on the they call him Arrow. But the show was called Arrow, but they did call him the Green Arrow on the show.
Not to be confused with the Marvel character Arrow, AERO.
Right. But yeah, so all these other shows spun out of that. And then because of that, they created the Arrowverse, and Green Arrow ended, I think, 2 years ago. And then Warner Brothers did what it did and kind of sort of, some of the shows just getting canceled, but then kind of sort of just started canceling the other Arrowverse shows. And then Flash, they knew that they was going to be ending soon because the Flash of that universe, Grant Gustin, him and Candace Patton, who plays Iris West Allen on the show, they got to the point where like there was times where they had to keep trying to re-sign them because they was wanting to stop actually doing the show. Like even Candace Patton just came out saying even if the Flash was to come back, she's done with the whole thing. But basically,
and who's Candace Patton?
She plays Iris West Allen on the show, who's Barry's wife
on Arrow.
Yeah, no, on the Flash.
On the Flash. I'm sorry.
Right.
So,
right. But just
a quick dumb it down a little bit for the dumb guy who's all new to all this. The Arrowverse, as I'm looking on Wikipedia, includes the television series Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, Batwoman, and then the web series is Vixen and Freedom Fighters, The Ray.
Yeah.
Which I've never. I don't know any of this. I know. I guess I've heard of The Flash and Arrow. And I think I was aware Supergirl existed, but Legends of Tomorrow, I don't know what that is.
Well, and that's the thing. So let's hold on to Legends of Tomorrow for a second.
Yeah.
So then the Arrowverse is like this DC's TV kind of universe Flash, which
so it's like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right. But here's the thing.
Even though that's kind of an MCU, it's in and out of the MCU.
Right. Where it's weird because they've done Crisis on Infinity Earths a few times on this show.
Yeah.
Which is basically like where they bring other universes into the fold. It's like their version of the multiverse, right?
Right.
So on that,
doesn't Marvel have a patent on multiverse?
They don't.
Everybody can do. Somebody came up with this idea of doing a multiverse. This allows you to do everything. So now everybody does multiverses, right?
But so like a few years ago when they did that Crisis on Infinity Earth thing, like all of the shows crossed over. But then they also did Flashpoint, which is basically what this Flash movie is based on. But in their version of Flashpoint, which is still tied into like Crisis series thing that they did, Ezra Miller, he showed up on the Flash. So he came face to face with Grant Gustin's Flash. And then like people like losing their mind because like, oh shit.
That's two different
this
people
is,
who played Flash?
Yeah, but this is the DC at the time they was still the DCEU. This is the DCEU's version of the Flash popping up on the CW Arrowverse Flash. So people sit there saying like, oh shit. So when the Flash movie
they're both Flashes?
Both Flashes. He showed up just like the way he was dressed in the I would say the Snyder Cut. It's just the way he showed up in Justice League movie. He was exact same costume.
So until this happened, the DC movies like the Ben Affleck and all the Wonder Woman were not in the TV at all. They were separate worlds.
Never been on a TV show.
So when he showed up, did he come from another dimension? Is that what it is? He came from another
universe? It was like him going through the whole Flashpoint thing. And he pops up, boom, bada bang. There he was. So people think like, oh, is Grant Gustin going to show up in this Flash? Grant Gustin supposedly he has nothing to do with this Flash.
So would you say Grant Gustin is better than Ezra?
Yes. But not even that, like, it's weird. And I think I mentioned this way back when we was talking about the Snyder Cut. The way that the Flash runs in the DC movies looks like he's on roller skates. If you watch the Flash on the TV, he's running the way you would expect someone to like, okay.
Super fast. So the TV's better? TV's a better running? So that's better than Ezra?
I think unless they fix it in this movie, it's better than Ezra's running. Because like I say, Ezra's running is like he's on rollerblades or something. Where
so would you say
the Flash TV show, he looks like how you would see, unless he's reading the comic book and you see Flash where he has like his hands out and he's doing this move.
Yeah.
It looks just like he's running, like it's like the comic page popped out into the television. Where again, like watching the Flash and the Snyder shit, I felt like I was watching roller derby. Which is, I'm not saying roller derby is a bad thing.
Yeah.
It makes Flash look like he's not really moving that fast.
So you think it would be good? It would be good living with Flash, because he's better than Ezra.
Then Flash, who was that?
It was good living with you. It was good. Better than Ezra. The band better than Ezra.
Right, I got you.
That whole thing was just me trying to get you to say better than Ezra, and you did in a sentence, and you never once knew what I was trying to get you to do.
Broke.
Just that song, better than Ezra. Remember that song? It was good.
I never liked listening to Better Than Ezra. Not one of my favorite bands.
They only have one song. I know. Yeah.
Right.
Good,
that's like listening.
Good,
what's the?
Good.
That's like what's it? Marcy's Playground.
I don't know.
That's the name of the band.
I don't think I know that.
I smell sex and candy. I think that's Marcy's Playground.
It is. It is. No, I thought that was Stone Temple Pilots.
I think that's the name of the band.
Sex and Candy. Oh, you're right. Marcy Playground. I don't know why I thought that was Stone Temple Pilots that sang that. I smell sex and candy. Who's that lounging?
All right, so that's the difference between that the Arrowverse.
Well, that's exciting. So if I were to start all over in this, would you? I guess now that it's connected to the DCU, is it all one thing? And would you start with an Arrowverse, or would you start with DCU, or would you just go chronologically?
That's just it. They aren't though. It's almost like
connected?
how it's almost like how the MCU so far is doing with their being able to the few times use Venom, where it's like, oh shit, is Venom now in the MCU? But then it comes back, we kind of gets wiped out of the thing because of like multi-madness type shit, which you haven't gotten to yet. But it's like Venom pops up and it's like, oh shit, you got Spider-Man showing up in the MCU. Now you got another Sony property, Venom, showing up in the MCU. And you're like, there's gonna be this big thing with Venom and Spider-Man, and then they took it all away.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I have a whole nother thing that I want to try too, which is I want to start building the Joe-verse.
Just knowing you, and I know how you feel about guys with bow and arrows. Arrow, which is a good show, because it introduces different storylines from the Green Arrow universe. You get Ra's al Ghul, who's been a Green Arrow and a Batman villain.
Now, how are you
get
saying
like
that name?
Ra's al Ghul.
Because I think Andy calls him Ra's al Ghul, right?
It's one of those things where it's like
Andy says it wrong.
Mitzelplick. No, it's like in some terms he's Raj al Ghul, and like you can watch different movies and shows. They'll call him Raish. They'll call him Raj. So it's like it's
like
it's one of those things,
like a nickname type. You can say his name different, like you're Art and Arthur, that type of thing.
It's not that. It's more or less like a root or route kind of thing.
Oh, gotcha.
Like
roof or roof. Roof or roof.
I don't know. Roof.
So what do you like better between Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, and Batwoman? I did watch one episode of Black Lightning just to see what that was about.
Black Lightning was okay. It was one of those. Black Lightning was one of those things like you like as a person of color, you watch it because it's a black superhero.
Yeah.
Right. Like if they like supposedly they're supposed to be coming out with a Static Shock, not the CW, but at some point they're supposed to be like a live action Static Shock. So that's one of those things where it's like, oh, you want to watch Static Shock, but like Black Lightning was one of those shows where they introduced things, and they actually did cross like towards the end. Like once the Arrowverse had that little crisis thing where Green Arrow became the Spectre, who is kind of deals with what we're eventually going to get to, but he ends up helping to create this new world. But then come to find out at the end of the Flash season, he pops up again. He says like, wow, and Infinite Crisis Earths made one universe. Basically, what he ended up doing is creating other new universes. So like they rebuilt. It's kind of weird and convoluted. Like, okay, doesn't make sense, but okay, I see what you wanted. The show's going off. Let's just send some fuck you to people and shit. But anyway, Black Lightning ended up becoming a part of. I'm doing air quotes here, people. The Super Friends, which he's been like Black Lightning is one of. Like he's been like in the Justice League, he's been one of their leaders. Like if you watch the Young Justice, this was the animated series. Black Lightning is basically like he's like one of the superheroes that they use a lot on the show, but he's like literally like the leader of the Justice League a lot of times in the continuity of being having like the Justice League. But like so they had like all of the Arrowverse characters. They actually made a Hall of Justice. I don't know if you know anything about Super Friends and Hall of Justice.
Yeah, I remember the Hall of Justice when I was a kid.
Yeah, so they actually made a Hall of Justice for the Arrowverse. So there's Supergirl. They even have like Diggle, who became I forgot what the fuck his damn character name was. But like all like some of their minor characters became a part of like their quote unquote Justice League, where they had like the chairs with all of their logos on the back of it and everything, where like all of them can come together and take on, the big entity that they're supposed to take on or some shit. And Black Lightning kind of became like, because Oliver Queen was dead, he kind of became like the person that Barry would go to when he needed help and advice because he couldn't get to Oliver. Anywho,
this is
that's that. That's that.
So
Dr. Cole.
There's movies, so anyways, that's the Arrowverse. That's a little toe into that. So I think I want to get into the Arrowverse. Like I want to, and I think, the plan was to go through the whole MCU first, but it keeps going.
I don't think.
I think we need to dip around, and we got to start Star Wars. We got to get into Star Wars because we have someone who is a Star Wars newbie. He's never watched any Star Wars. And but they're a huge nerd and they've been meaning to. So I said, please save your Star Wars for us and we'll do this on Nerd School. And so we'll have a new pupil because I know a little bit about Star Wars. So it doesn't make sense for me to be the brand new pupil. There's still some things we can learn.
You could be like,
but I can be a TA for Star Wars. And so that'll be fun having somebody who's brand new to the universe and asking us questions about everything and going little by little, but we also have to figure out how we're going to get into it. So at the same time, I want to throw in DC. I want to try this one-off episodes about characters and just go from the beginnings, the origins of these characters from like the 30s on, and just go through this Wikipedia list. And I found out on this page that was like history. It was like superhero debuts in comics, and basically comic books. And it goes back all the way to superheroes, even before comic books were a thing. It was list of superhero debuts on Wikipedia is what it is. And so it starts with the 1900s. In 1902, there was Hugo, Hercules, and newspaper comics. It goes magazines and pulp magazines, newspapers, plays, and then radio, and then it gets to comic books, and that's where we really kind of want to get to our sweet spot. And that's where I found the first one was actually 1933. It was Secret Operative number 48, who was known as Detective Dan Dunn, but that was not in DC or Marvel. It's in a company called Norman Marsh, which I guess doesn't exist anymore. So I don't know if you heard of Norman Marsh comics.
I've not heard of Norman Marsh.
It just goes to some page that it doesn't, there's not much on there. So on this list, but so the first thing from DC or Marvel is 1935, October, Dr. Occult and Rose Psychic come out in DC Comics. And he is, in a lot of ways, he is sort of a precursor to Superman, because sometimes he's just wearing a trench coat and a hat like a Dick Tracy type of guy. He's also dubbed the Ghost Detective, but other times he's wearing a red cape and a blue suit. And they've said he's sort of, this is like right before they decided they came out with Superman. You have to you can see early versions of Superman in Dr. Occult.
Well, the creators of Superman, aren't they like co-creators of Dr. Occult?
Yeah, I think they're the same guys. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. They're the creators of Superman, but they also created Dr. Occult, who is an occult detective and private investigator, and he's a user of magic who specializes in cases involving the supernatural. And this first appeared in 1935, and this was the golden age of comic books, which I know you guys are very familiar with. The golden age and the silver age.
Bronze age.
Bronze. What are we in now? What's now?
I forgot. It's funny because me and Andy, shout out to Heroes Con, we'll be there this year.
Yeah.
Last year, man, Andy sat on a panel where this guy was breaking down the different ages, and then also the kind of quasi new age that they have now.
Okay, yeah.
Which I forgot exactly what it was. I'm sure if Andy was here, he'd have it in his
spout
head.
it out. Yeah. And Andy can't be here today because he's too busy investigating moles on his body. He sets aside every Monday to just look at all his moles.
And so you saying this is Mole Monday for Andy?
It's Mole Monday for Andy, so he's busy. But Dr. Occult was published by National Comics Publication and Centaur Publications within anthology titles. He's the earliest recurring, originally featured fictional character created by DC Comics that still is currently used in the DC universe. He's commonly affiliated with the All-Star Squadron and has appeared occasionally in paranormal-related stories by DC and Vertigo Comics titles. So that made me fall down a rabbit hole of what's All-Star Squadron. Are you familiar with the All-Star Squadron?
When I was young, I used to read the comic books.
Yeah.
But so the All-Star Squadron, I want to say is like, what would be the Marvel equivalent? The Marvel equivalent would probably be like maybe the Defenders.
Okay.
I would give, but like off the top of my head, other than, just him and Dr. Occult, I can see the characters in All-Star Squadron.
Yeah.
But then I can't remember, because isn't name a character.
That's what I'm looking at. They were
this is one dude who looks kind of like Sentry, who's a Marvel character that's a part of them. I know. Because I said, I used to have I used to when I was growing up, I didn't care what comic book I had. I was just, if it was a comic book, I fucking wanted it. You go to the thrift store, you go to anywhere, you get oh, look, there's a comic book. Let me grab one.
Yeah, so I guess they're different people. Like the All-Star Squadron,
yeah, different people. Yes, it's
included,
like a Justice Society type thing.
Yeah, it was like after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, President Franklin Roosevelt gathered available superheroes, including members of the Justice Society of America, Freedom Fighters, Seven Soldiers of Victory, and solo heroes at the White House, and asked them to band together for the war as the All-Star Squadron. So I guess it included Superman, Green Lantern, Dr. Fate, and others.
Dr. Midnight.
Yeah.
So, and it's weird because like a lot of some of these characters from All-Star Squadron were recently on Stargirl. Stargirl was also part of the Arrowverse, but Stargirl had like you had Catman, you had Dr. Midnight, who was his name was Alan McNider, I think his name was, but his thing was like there's a Starman.
Okay, it was initially chaired by Hawkman, and the JSA members participated freely. The core of the squadron, however, was made up of lesser-known characters like Liberty Bell, Firebrand, Johnny Quick, Hawk Girl, Commander Steel, Robot Man, and the Shining Knight. And then there's, of course, a Wikipedia page that's a list of all Star
and Commander Steel, his son, and I'm doing air quotes, his son was a part of Legends of Tomorrow. And he played a character who could turn into steel. He could turn his body into steel. So
that's kind of cool.
Weird.
So yeah, so Dr. Occult was just one of these guys, but later, and that was like in 1981 they did this. It was like it's interesting to me because it's all about World War II, but it came out in August of 1981. Is it, it just seems like a rip off of Captain America, like Captain America's World War II guy, maybe not rip off, but
by now you should have established that comic book characters, especially if they're done by certain author or artists.
Yeah,
it's like they'll let's say if they go from this comic house to that comic house, they bring parts of those characters and they do just enough where it's not like copyright infringement or you have like Deathstroke and Deadpool kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's like
the characters like Wade Wilson, Slade Wilson. So it's like you get kind of close, but then you tweak them just a little bit so they're different, but it's Pepsi Coke.
Yeah, because you see
both
one thing that sells, you make your version of it. So it's like we had the Ultimate Warrior and they had the Renegade in WCW, which was like the copy. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin, then you had Goldberg, looked exactly, dressed the same. He wasn't the same style, but there's copycats everywhere, not just wrestling and sodas. But I think the cool thing about this Dr. Occult is at the same time, his sort of sidekick, a side person, was a female hero called Rose Psychic.
Right.
A childhood friend and assistant to Dr. Occult at his private detective firm, the Trenchcoat Brigade. And after Dr. Occult died during battle, Rose had bonded their souls together, resulting in them sharing one body. So that's crazy to me to hear about.
And it's weird. Like once you mentioned his character, I was like, he kind of seems familiar.
Yeah.
And then I looked at him, I was like, okay, he's a supernatural guy. And I kept going like, okay, he's related, not related. He's from him and Constantine or Constantine, whichever way he wants to be pronounced.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other mystical characters in the DC universe, like I remember seeing, just watching different shows and movies, and he will pop up, and
Dr. Occult would here and there.
Dr. Occult, but he's one of those characters. It's like if you watch, like I say, like Justice League Unlimited or something like that, and you'll see Plastic Man show up. You'd be like, oh shit, that's Plastic Man. It's like you see him, and he may pop up in one adventure or something, but you know he's a part of the Justice League.
I think
he's like Plastic Man.
That's what I love most about comic books. And I guess some of these superhero movies, but it's just that these characters, they keep using these characters. Somebody created in the 30s, and they keep using. They're staying like true to the thing. They'll bring them back and they'll pop in, and you can just. And then you got online, you have these like encyclopedias that list the appearance of, you look up one character and every single appearance they are everywhere, and you can cross over it into everything. Like I can read a Plastic Man comic because Dr. Occult shows up in this episode if I'm a Dr. Occult fan.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
So when I fell down the hole. I didn't go too far,
Yeah.
but I fell, right?
Yeah.
So I started scrolling through the Wikipedia page for him. You know how you get to the bottom, they'll show like they have like the footnotes, right?
Yeah.
So when I go on Wikipedia, a lot of times I read through the footnotes.
The footnotes are awesome.
Just to see what the article, whatever.
Yeah, because
so
then you'll be reading a whole article. Yeah.
Yeah. I clicked on one of the articles because I'm like, oh, cool. They made this mention. I forgot what the article was. I should have just pulled the Wikipedia page up. But like I was looking at it, so I clicked on this article and they started talking about Dr. Occult and like his appearances and stuff. And then one of his most recent appearances was in a book called Rain in Hell. And I was like, holy shit. We talking about this shit. And literally, I have this damn book right here.
Really?
Rain of Hell. Is it showing up?
Yeah, you got that comic book right there.
Right. So the backup story to this book is Dr. Occult.
What?
And I was like, I was like, how ironic. And I see this book because it was sitting on top of my PlayStation, which is where I have my headphones at.
Yeah.
So every time we go to record, I grab my headphones. I see this comic. So I read the story like I hadn't read it yet.
Yeah.
So I read like, okay, they say this is the backup story and this issue. So I read the comic, and it does the thing where it's like, he carries around the this glowing orb, this red orb. That was to say he mentioned he carries this black disc, which they don't show in this comic. But he has like the orb that he got from, I guess they call it the Seven. And then like the orb,
Seven is a whole other thing. Yeah. Right.
So the orb is where like he'll sit there. Like he was like in the comic, they were saying they talk about what's going on in this miniseries. And he was like, these two dead people are talking to him, like, yeah, you're gonna have to draw a line in the sand kind of thing. You're gonna have to come out because things are happening on Hell. He's like, well, what? And it's just like almost like in Constantine fashion, be like, well, what does that really have to do with me? He's like, oh, it has a whole lot to do with you. And he goes to this whole thing about like, should I get involved? Shouldn't I get involved? Who cares if they, called the herd kind of thing? Who cares? The orbs. He like, I came with you guys because this orb's been buzzing lately. And they make mention of like they make mention of modern technology, which is weird because like here's a guy from the 30s.
Yeah.
And then like here it is. And he mentions how he's been living on this world for a long time. Because he uses like something like de-age himself.
It's supernatural powers that make him never
so this
age,
orb
really,
that he has, he talks to it, and Rose Psychic comes out of it, like an image of her, a visage of her comes out of the orb, and he communicates with her, and she helps him on these cases and things. I like, oh shit. So I gotta find the rest of this miniseries.
So that comic, what year? What
2008.
2008 is what it's
2008.
from. Because it kind of like parallels what I found is on the Wikipedia page too, is that the Dr. Occult's origin was revealed in Secret Origins Volume 2, number 17 in August of 1987, done by E. Nelson Bridewell and Roy Thomas. I don't know if they're comic book artists, or writers, but they depicted him and his partner Rose Psychic being slated as human sacrifices at the hands of a demonic cult, but were rescued by a shadowy group called the Seven. And the two were later trained in the use of occult magic themselves. And then 36 years later, Dr. Occult opened up his own detective agency, specializing in crimes of a mythical nature. And during World War II, he joined the All-Star Squadron. And at some point, they say again, he and Rose become fused into one being. And Dr. Occult has used sorcery to halt or greatly slow the aging process so that he appears in modern comics to still be a man in his late 30s or early 40s, even though he was born at the end of the 19th century. And so that's kind of the thing. It's kind of Captain America-esque, where he's frozen in ice or whatever from the 40s, and you can keep using them.
Another thing that came out of me falling down this rabbit hole, it just skimming through the article, and they mentioned House of Secrets, and I was like, I know this. Then it got to House of Mystery, and I'm like, House of Mystery. So now I'm like falling deeper, and I was like, on Legends of Tomorrow, the last 2 seasons, they were living in the house because Constantine, he joined the squad later in the series, but they was in this house. It was this magical house dealing with So I'm like, what the hell is this damn? I know the name of this damn house. Because then it's also in Constantine, I want to say his animated series, animated movies. I think Dr. Cole pops up in that as well.
Really?
But this house is from like the House of Mystery, which is also like I don't want to say like the twin of the House of Secrets, which has like ties to like Dr. Cole because it's all about mystic arts. But then Constantine and Dr. Cole didn't you read that they were both a part of the trench coat brigade because they all wore these brown trench coats.
Yeah, they
and
dressed like 40s
were,
news
yeah.
reporters, guys, detectives or whatever that everybody wore.
I just imagine like one of they like have you like if you read any of these older comics like from that time period, they have that radio detective kind of speak. So it's like,
Hey,
like
see, yeah, hey, split the triple dicks.
give me a cup of coffee, dang.
Yeah. Say, Jasper, what comes out of 75? 76. That's the spirit. Yeah. So, speaking of the trench coat brigade, which is a whole nother thing that I never heard of, there was Mr. E, the Phantom Stranger, John Constantine, and I guess Dr. Occult. And I scrolled down farther in his Wikipedia page, and one of the modern age revivals was in 1991 in Neil Gaiman's The Book of Magic. I didn't know Neil Gaiman did comic books.
Yeah.
I
Brant P. Fundak. He over the summer.
I thought he was just a book writer, like a novel writer. Like
last summer, he was talking about how he was excited when the Sandman TV show came out on Netflix.
Yeah.
He was like saying how great the Sandman comic books are and everything. But Neil Gaiman, he's done like it's a lot of his books, like are based on certain comics. But then he also does quite a few other comics as well.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't realize
Mm-hmm.
that. So that's why I was like, oh my God, he did something called the Books of Magic, which is a 4-issue comic book miniseries published by DC and later an ongoing series under the imprint Vertigo.
Vertigo.
I know you're familiar with DC and Vertigo. Like that's a whole subsection of DC comics.
As Andy, I think Andy mentioned this before too. Like Vertigo was like, it deals with more like the dark corner of the DC universe. It's almost like how Marvel has like their Marvel Knights imprint, which deals with like the darker stuff like Daredevil, Moon Knight. But like with Vertigo, you have like Sandman, you have Constantine. You would have like it would be something with kind of dark, and in some instances sometimes kind of adult, geared towards more of a serious note. Almost like Batman could probably could have been moved if he wasn't such a big part of DC. He probably could have been moved to like Vertigo because he has that kind of like that darkness that Vertigo has. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. And then finally, I got to like the New 52, which I know you guys have explained a few times. And that's where he wields the powerful talisman, the sphere or disc with the black and white pattern called the mystic symbol of the seven. Grants him the powers of clairvoyance, fighting exorcism, deflection, force field projection. I was thinking, I hear about the New 52 so much from you guys that I just wonder, like, if I was going to just start a comic book somewhere, should I just start with the New 52?
If you want to have, see that's what the New 52.
Or does that taint things if I haven't watched?
It doesn't, but it's almost just like with Marvel. They had Heroes Reborn. So basically, what it was them trying to pull in new comic readers. Whereas now, the way that they do comics, they found a way to like, okay, we'll have a book, but they'll tell you like, okay, this is a good jumping off point, a starting point. You don't have to know the whole history. You can just start this book at this series, and then, but for you, it's going to be tough because like I know, like let's say if I'm reading the book, like a lot, like even now, some of the stuff the reason I started reading the new Amazing Spider-Man series is because I was reading one book and it said see what happened and such. So then I went back, started reading those books, Cause like I wanted to be, oh, cool. Like the Daredevil Chip Zdarsky run, which I've been starting from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because it's like Daredevil's got to a point. It's like I don't just want to just start reading because this shit is ridiculous. I need to go back and start from the beginning and work my way up that way. But I'm just doing that with Daredevil. And then with Amazing Spider-Man 1, they're only on issue 26 and I'm on issue 8. So it's like it's feasible. They're like, okay, I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna read enough that I can get caught up to where I'm in the current run. If you fall on that rabbit hole and try to say, well, I want to start back here, and like I'm gonna start at the New 52. The New 52 was one of those things, like when it came out, they had like new books coming out every week. It would be like certain books. Every week it was a new issue coming out.
Yeah.
And comics are only like 20-something pages long.
Yeah.
But then, like, are you going to buy them, and then are you going to read them digitally?
That's the whole thing. I got to
And
read
then think about what
digitally, and I don't want to pay for them.
Right.
You know,
but
if I
say,
get a
even if you read them,
subscription,
even if you read them digitally, there's certain books like Batwoman. When that came back out, the way Batwoman was written and the way it was illustrated, you could get it digitally. But trying to read that shit digitally, like it's like this is one book now. I think I kind of stopped reading it because it would always have. It would have like a circle and it would have text written in a circle.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I'm reading this on my iPad, on my Kindle, I have to sit there and rotate the shit just to read what's in a circle. Where if I had a comic book, it's easier to rotate a comic book. But when you're holding like a tablet or you like I said, you're reading on your computer. So now how you going to rotate your computer to read shit? Black woman, Batwoman, her book, it had like wedges. Yeah. So it was like the way it was illustrated beautifully, but it was one of those things that was meant, like it was literally meant to be read physically. Like if you read it digital, shit would hurt your damn eyes.
Yeah.
You know, because like that's now you got to read it this way, then you got to read, then like the thing slithers in, like a little slice wedge. You're like, okay. And so and then with the guided view, it wouldn't come out right because now like you tap in the screen and like, okay, it's sliding. Like, is this going the right? So it becomes tricky. But then, like I say, reading the New 52, if you start at New 52, you be reading a shit ton of books.
Yeah, because it's the New 52 is the whole universe, right? All of DC.
Right.
It's not just.
But then, you get some cool because like you get to learn cool news stories, which they ended up just going through and destroying and decimating that, and then went back to some of the old dish, like, yeah, well, fuck this new, like, rebooting the shit. We're just gonna take it back to where it used to be, kind of thing. So you have to deal with that. So like now, like you're reading all of the stuff to get to know, and then once they ended the New 52 and they started up again, you're like, oh wait, they went back to where it was. I learned all of this for what?
Well, maybe one of those things, maybe I'll just
Wikipedia.
Maybe I'll just that's what I'm looking at Wikipedia, but I'm just like, maybe I'll just grab, as we do this, go through the order of origins of people, and I'll just find a series of Dr. Occult and read that, and then go to the next character.
The good thing is,
it's any one of them. I can bring in 87.
We'll be at Heroes Con in a little less than a month. You know,
so maybe that's what I'll do. Every time we go to Heroes Con, I'll just look for one book or one series, and if I get them cheap.
But it got to be look for maybe a trade. Maybe like if we there on that Sunday, you know, where they have like the special sales and stuff.
Yeah.
You pick up a good, like, I'll get this book. Like this is what you do. This is what you should do, right?
Yeah.
Do this Heroes Debate LJ Bowen style, right?
Yeah.
Take a list of books and things.
Yeah.
Put it in the cup. Then take a list of books that you want to read, and take it and put the, like, not books, just characters. Make a character.
Yeah.
Put it in a hat, and then just shake it up and pick one out, and then that's the character that you're gonna get that backstory on, and you're gonna read. That's the one where it's like, so then we'll have these podcast things, and you'll be like, well, wait, what? Dr. Cut? Fuck you, Andy. I know this one here.
Hey, this is kind of making me feel like what we should do, because I had a lot of fun last Comic Con, Heroes Con, helping you find Juggernaut. Like, your goal was to find a Juggernaut,
which I still have not yet got.
Well, we found one, but he was super expensive. By the end, we found him like, and that was kind of like cost prohibitive. But what if we do a game, since the Nerd School is going to be there more days this year? We do that thing out of a hat, whatever it is, however we decide, everybody picks randomly
and then we have to
a
get
character, and we each have to go on a scavenger hunt, and we'll kind of record it. We'll record ourselves looking for it, see who can find whatever it like. It can be anything. It can be an action figure. It can be a comic book with them in it. It can be whatever it is. But if you get
that's fucking awesome.
If you get Dr. Occult, I get Robin from Batman Robin, Andy gets the Thing, whatever. I mean, hopefully it'll be more obscure.
I think what it is. So I think what we should do though,
they gotta be obscure ones, and then
right,
we gotta find them.
Yeah. Not necessarily obscure, but like ones who like we can't like, and with this it can't be like any of the main characters. Like we can't.
It can't be Captain America. It's got to be.
And I feel like it's one of those things where, okay, so this is awesome. So it's like I know that me and Andy and TBJ to some extent, like when it comes to like DC Marvel, we're gonna have like a whole like, okay, we know like if it's a main character kind of thing, even just like whatever. But like if we can put in like Image, we could put IDW, so it could be ones where it's like, okay, let's say if
Firebrand,
all of them can be in there, but like you may not know anything about like, let's say, Taskmaster, other than have you seen Black Widow?
I did watch it, but
you don't remember Taskmaster. But other than your exposure to Taskmaster from Marvel Snap, which is totally different than Taskmaster.
Well, and I saw him in Hero Clicks too, because we played Hero Clicks.
Well, yeah. So, but like you may pull Taskmaster, and like, okay, you got to find something with Taskmaster, and like let's say, oh, like that's okay for you, but let's say if we pull something and it's like something like it's like Robin, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh no, so we have to redraw, but we have to redraw until we get someone like, let's say TBJ pulls Malbolgia. I don't know if TBJ knows who Malbolgia is. That's a Spawn villain, right?
But so isn't that like, part of the game? Is like she's got to figure out who that is.
Right. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, now it's okay for her to go find that, as opposed to like if she pulls out Monica Rambeau.
Yeah,
like
she
if
knows
you
Monica Rambeau too well.
Rambeau, like Monica Rambeau now, but let's say back then when you didn't know, if you had to pull out Monica Rambeau, it's okay because you're Joe. So it's kind of like we pull from the list of names, but if one of us pulls something that would be almost, I guess, a little bit too easier for us, the professors, then we would have to redraw until we got something where it's like, okay, this might be challenging, as opposed to like if we draw something where like,
I just say we only put in the hat challenging ones. Like we'll just make a list.
Right,
like it's got to be like secondary characters like Firebrand or Doll Girl or Commander Steel, Hop Harrigan. I'm reading off people from the All-Star Squadron. Mr. America. I mean, Neon the Unknown. Who the fuck is that? Like, wait a minute. There's a DC Quicksilver?
And it has to be really obscure because Andy knows a lot of
Sandy the Golden
characters.
Boy. Yeah. So real quick before we got to end this because you got to get to work and we got to end this someday. I found a list of the Marvel comic book eras. The Golden Age was 1939 to 1956. The Silver Age was 61 to 70. The Bronze Age was 70 to 84. The Modern Age began in 84 to 97. And then they call it Heroes Relaunched, 97 to 2004. Marvel Disassembled, 2004 to 2012. Marvel Now is 2012 to 2015. All new, all different Marvel is 2015 to 2018. Fresh Start is 2018 to 2021. And then Timeless is 2021 to current, I guess. That's the Marvel comic book eras. But I don't see one of DC. Because I was trying to look for like a guide to just like everything published by Marvel and DC, like everything published, every series to see. Like I would like to do a small series, like one that's like 5 books, like I don't want to do one that's like 150 books, because I'm not going to be.
Well, it's weird. Like I was watching this, I follow a lot of YouTubers, comic book YouTubers or comic book YouTubers. That don't make sense. I follow a lot of YouTubers who review comic books.
Yeah.
And there's one guy, I watched this video he put out yesterday, who was like new books coming this week. And I was like, okay, usually when I read a book, I read like DC, I read Marvel, I'll do like Image. And then other stuff like if I'm reading, like let's say I'm reading Rick and Morty, or if I'm reading Doctor Who or Star Trek or something like that, they end up being like IDW books. And then like Boom Studios and Dynamite, but there are all these other new comic houses. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Whatnot. Well, Whatnot is the little app that came out last year where you can actually, it's like an auction site you go on.
Who shot who in the what now?
People could like they sell off their stuff or whatever.
Oh, you were telling me about Whatnot.
I just found out. Well, I guess I knew because I've seen like at certain Comic Cons, people have like Whatnot exclusive covers of certain books, but they have their own publishing house now. Like there's a Whatnot comics company now, where like you can actually, they put out comic books. Like this auction house puts out their own brand of comic books. But it's like there are other comic houses, like there's the one called AWA, which is artists, writers, and artisans.
Yeah.
So it's like all these different books. I'm like, the covers look amazing. I want to start reading more indie books as opposed to reading like from the big three and then the smaller I want to call them minor league of books.
Yeah.
But then they're also, I mean, we like how, just going to like these cons where you get to meet comic creators and see other different books. Is like just starting to want to read more of those and then trying to get more into like them kind of characters as opposed to just like,
this could be fun. I say we either pitch it to Andy and TBJ as
I've actually pitched me and Andy in some of the conversations we've had like, at work or whatever. I've always said like, we got those moments where, like he's contemplating getting back into reading comic books, right?
Yeah.
But like even if he doesn't get back into it, we read stuff about comics. So like we can actually have things where like we have little episodes like this where like how you're doing the characters where me and Andy just sit there and bullshit about
you can do a whole series. You could do a series, or a series that you guys remember fondly. But I like this scavenger hunt idea. Like I even like we record an episode where we pick our things out of a hat, what we're gonna do, like maybe the week before we go. And I say we do All-Star Squadron. Like we put all these rare All-Star Squadron people in a hat. We pick them, and it's like whatever you get, and then we share what we found. Like I found a little action figure, I found a keychain, I got a sticker, whatever it is, or it might be all just books that you find, or there's so much shit there. The scavenger hunt idea to me sounds super fun, and then us sharing what we. Okay, here's my stupid character. I hated him or whatever. I read about him and now I like him, or now I hate him, or I found a T-shirt. It could be anything. The rarer, the better, almost for me. I don't know if TBJ and Andy will both be into that, but because it does kind of all spend some money. But you don't have to. You can be like, hey, I found it was $800. I'm not buying it.
Well, like so it's not even like you say. We don't have to buy it. It can sit there. Like let's say
you get a picture of you with it. Yeah,
right. Well, like I'm doing this. Like oh shit, there it is. You'd be like, look, I found such and such. And,
just take a picture of you with it. Yeah, you don't have to buy it. Yeah. But anyway, that we got to end here because you got to get to work. Thanks for listening, Nerd Schoolers. We talked a little bit about the exhibit at Discovery Place. Go see it. The Marvel Universe of Superheroes. Really awesome. Really worth it. Go check it out. You can spend so much time there. And we also talked about Dr. Occult a little bit. A little backstory. The first DC superhero with Rose Psychic. Is that her name? Did I say that right? Yeah,
Rose Psychic.
Who's, obviously she started the same time as Sidekick. That sounds cool. I'm going to try to find me a Dr. Occult action figure with Rose Psychic. That's what I do. I'll collect the action figures one by one like that. Anyway, Artstar, you want to sing us out?
I don't have anything for you today, Joe. Next time. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like one cool thing you guys should know is I don't know what it is, but at some point I feel like we try to get her to say Excelsior.
Yeah.
I feel like I love that it's gotten to the point where it's like it's a kind of sort of like a running joke, but it's one of those things where it's like if TBJ ever does say Excelsior, it's going to ruin the joke. Like we can't,
she can't ever say.
So this has to be a thing where it's like, how she's always trying to pawn me off, It's like it's always like us getting TBJ to say Excelsior is like a holy grail. Right?
I think the only way to get her to say it is if she's
only fan. Yeah.
if we're behind her, she doesn't know we're there, and she's telling somebody, yeah, these fools always try to get me to say Excelsior. I'm never gonna say it. And we'll be like, oh, she said it. Oh,
Yeah. But then even then, I think that it'll ruin it. Like,
yeah,
man, like, damn it, she said it. Like, we can't prod it anymore about just give us one good Excelsior. Like even how we was at the museum, I was trying to like just say Excelsior. She's like, no.
Once like on a sitcom, once the guy once Sam and Diane get together, then you don't want to watch it anymore. They've already gotten together. Who cares? There's got to be a love story. It's us trying to get her to say Excelsior. So Excelsior, nerds out. Anything else, Artstar?
Not at all.
Thank you for listening to the Nerd School podcast.
They say I can't rap about the president no more, but evidently they don't see we in the streets still poor. Still more incarceration of my kinsmen by the prisons, and people thinking this election to end in racism. Proud over pessimism, glad to see Obama, but don't expect me not to speak out when I still see problems, Mr. Officer. Now they POTUS look like me, you gon' think again when seeing brothers rolling down the street. Every Martin Luther King on his American dream. Still a Rodney being beaten, screaming fuck the police. Me, I'm running through the pasture, trying to get away from master, but the dogs is on my ass, I gotta move a little faster. Can't pass for Caucasian, but I got a couple papers from the plantation saying I graduated. Congratulations, cool beans, but to most school mean trying to dodge STDs, living off government cheese. Trust the government, please. Not even if it was me sitting in the Oval Office as commander-in-chief, trying to give us free, but there's a nigga in my ear saying, you got it, Superman, you ought to keep it here. Get this distinctly clear, I'm all about jetting. Raps Kunta Kinte without the half-stepping. A new chapter, back with new lessons. After that, the final exam. Any questions?
QueenCityPodcastNetwork.com.
Excelsior.